It was warm and quiet in Mr. Rabbit's burrow. Mr. Rabbit and Mr. Mole were enjoying their afternoon elderflower tea. The tea was fragrant and hot. Mr. Rabbit carefully blew at some tea in his saucer. Mr. Mole wasn't careful. He sipped the tea too quickly, burned his little tongue and rubbed it with his paws. Meanwhile, above the burrow, Icky Mr Fox was up to mischief. He wanted to dig down with his big shovel to bully Mr. Rabbit and eat him for dinner. In the burrow, Mr. Rabbit and Mr. Mole were still having tea. Mr. Mole blew at the tea in his saucer, and Mr. Rabbit huffed right into his teacup. Above, Icky Mr. Fox was already digging down. Below, Mr. Mole brought out his best tea biscuits. Mr. Rabbit blew cool air at Mr. Mole's saucer, and Mr. Mole huffed right into Mr. Rabbit's teacup. Mr. Fox was getting closer. Mr. Mole brewed some more tea. Jolly Mr. Rabbit sipped the tea too quickly and burned his tongue. He rubbed it with his paws. Startled Mr. Mole threw his teacup in the air and it landed on his head. Mr. Fox was very close. Mr. Fox was very close. Below, Mr. Rabbit huffed right into Mr. Mole's snout, while Mr. Mole rubbed his teacup with his paws. Something made a loud cracking sound, and down fell a very dusty and tired Mr. Fox. "Tea?" asked Mr. Mole. Suddenly the ceiling collapsed and a pile of rocks fell on Mr. Fox. Mr. Fox was trapped. Mr. Mole and Mr. Rabbit decided to make a quick escape. Mr. Hedgehog was standing at the edge of the hole in the ground. Mr. Rabbit spotted him and hopped over. Mr. Hedgehog. "What's down there?" asked Mr. Rabbit. "Some kind of scary gobbledygook creature," said Mr. Hedgehog. "I keep throwing rocks down there and it just says moo."
Oh. Oh. Oh.